So you can come up with the best product in the whole world. You can come up with the best service in the whole world. But if you can't connect with your people group, if you can't share a message and them thoroughly understand what it exactly that you're trying to share, if you can't connect with them, you're going to fail.
Welcome to the Beyond Speaking podcast from Premier Speakers Bureau, featuring in-depth conversations with the world's most in-demand keynote speakers.
Hi, I'm Brian Lord. This is the Beyond Speaking podcast, and today we've got with us Dr. Damon Friedman. So Damon has just this amazing kind of Forrest Gump type life. Like a literal homeward to or homeless to Harvard story with Iraq and Afghanistan between, a retired lieutenant colonel in U.S. Special Forces, and award-winning nonprofit leader who's just had this amazing life with a lot of difficulty, but a lot of triumph as well. So Damon, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story.
Well, it's always an honor to be here, Brian. Love Premier and all the great work that you guys are doing and the great news. So yeah, excited.
So I know we'll get to some of these things. You just graduated from Harvard with yet another degree here just a couple months ago. But take us back, if you can, to that first part. So you're a kid growing up in L.A. and obviously a really difficult childhood. Maybe describe a little bit about that and how that impacted you for the rest of your life.
Yeah, born and raised downtown Los Angeles in the melting pot, literally. A lot of diversity. Hispanics, Puerto Ricans, Mexicans, African Americans, Vietnamese, Koreans, Armenians, like you name it. I was in a true melting pot. My mother from San Juan, Puerto Rico, the first Wonder Woman of my life. Okay. And then on the opposite side of the spectrum, right, is a very abusive biological father that, just psychologically, physically, socially, spiritually, very abusive and a lot of pain growing up, and we lived in low-income housing, the projects, got kicked out of like 3 different schools in 1 year, flunked a grade. I mean, it was really tough. And in fact, success was going literally from the house to school without getting into a fight, right? And then getting back home, that was a day of success, right? And where I was at, I mean, they would just graduate you from one grade to another. My first language was Spanish, so I had a very difficult time learning English and just trying to pass school, grades and get some passing grades, and it was tough. But I will tell you, I think probably the most difficult part of my growing up, we trust people, positions of authority, to encourage us, to mentor us. But for me, it just wasn't that way. I mean, kind of being raised, people calling you a loser, you're never going to amount to anything, you're never going to be successful. And then you kind of like look around, and I'm living in a 450 square foot apartment, green carpet, cockroaches. I got my twin brother, my mom, my grandmother, and it was easy to feel hopeless. And eventually, I started hanging out with the wrong people. My mom, single mother. My biological father, we didn't know him much at all. And my mom, she just worked like 18 hours a day. What was she doing? She was working hard, making beds to put rice and beans, food on the table. And, and eventually I found myself in a bad place. And I ended up going to jail, going to juvie. And that was a life-transforming experience. Anybody who goes to jail, it's a life-transforming experience. And then from there, I just kind of made this commitment, right? You get one shot in life. And it was there in juvie that I stopped listening to everybody else. And it was there where I heard this voice the first time in my life. I've got great plans for you. Plans to win, to persevere, not to lose. And I believed it. That was the first positive, like super powerful voice. My mom always was very encouraging, but it's your mom, right? Who listens to their mom when you're a kid, right? They're always wrong. Parents are wrong. And from there, I found my gift to run. I stopped running away from cops, started running toward a future. And that was a relentless pursuit, right? All my pain, all my agony, all my frustration, all my bitterness, I used it as fuel. And that's what propelled me. And no matter what the obstacles were, I made a commitment, not just for myself, but for my mother, for my brother, for my friends that never made it out of LA. And fast forward, I ended up becoming the fastest runner, in the state of Florida. I became a junior Olympian, undefeated in the mile that year, and I got myself a scholarship.
Wow.
And I was the first one in my family to, on my mom's side, to go to American, school, to go to college and graduate. And fast forward, once I graduated, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I knew exactly what I wanted to do, Brian, because, my country has been so good to me, so good to my family. Although this is not like the best ever, but, we didn't have a place to stay. Our country provided. Yeah, it was low-income housing. It was the projects and sometimes. But so what? It was a place to stay. When mom didn't have enough food, the country provided. We got on some food stamps. She wasn't proud of it, but she worked really hard to get off of them, and she did. And when it was time for a future and education, this great country, it provided. And that's why I joined the Marine Corps. I wanted to give back. I wanted to be part of something bigger than myself. And this was my opportunity to serve my nation. And then 20 years worth of war, God really blessed me. I'm a graduated Squadron Commander of U.S. Forces, retired out as the Director of all future operations for the Middle East of Special Operations Command Central. And I got myself a doctorate, finished Harvard in public leadership. And now I just thought to myself, it's been 2 years now and some change. And I thought to myself, well, what did the creator of the universe make me to do? So I'd done the nation's bidding for 20 years. And I got banged up, found myself in the hospital for, I think I was an inpatient for 3 months at one time, and outpatient for 6-9 months, medical leave for almost a year. I got banged up, Brian, serving my country in special operations, first in the Marine Corps, then in the U.S. Air Force Special Warfare and Special Operations, and doing capture kill missions, hunting down the baddest, bad people, people that put bombs into schools and kill children, do the most evil things in the whole world. And after that, I just thought it was time to transition and do something else. And so I prayed, I reflected. I've got gifts. I've got some superpowers because I'm an Avenger in my own right. Okay. And I decided, hey, maybe it's time to maybe make a mark, an atomic impact in the nonprofit space. Over 20 veterans are taking their lives every single day, Brian. Yeah. And that's a shame. You got homelessness, veterans all over America. There's a drug crisis with my community. And what do you expect? Millions of men and women have deployed to Afghanistan and Iraq, and they come home and the system isn't there to take care of them. The Department of Defense, I say this vehemently, they don't take care of our men and women that come back from combat. They do not. And the VA is struggling. So that's what I'm doing now. I'm leading a nonprofit SOF missions. We're in 45 different states. We've raised over $6 million. We've served over 2,500 veterans. And so I get this honor to speak at Premier, right? And my favorite agent right here, sorry, everybody else, okay? He just keeps booking me. And I get a chance to share my message of hope, my message of purpose. And if God can do all this in and through me, he can do this in and through anybody. And I'm inspiring people to not just feel better, but to go out and be a world changer. Yeah. Go do something. There are billions of people that are hurting. Billions of people that are hurting. What are we doing? We're America. This is the greatest nation in all the world. We can even look at the problems here in America. What are we doing? And this is what I'm doing. I'm focusing on the suicide epidemic, providing free medical care for my combat veterans, my warriors, men and women, and trying to give them some hope because a lot of them have, feel hopeless.
Yeah. One of the things I love about what you do is that it's not just about you making a difference. You're helping other people make a difference. One of the stories I love that you talk about and write about is one of your professors. You spent all this time writing this paper about what you were going to do. And what was the story about how you changed that?
Yeah, so I'm trying to get into my doctorate program, okay? And so you've got this focus paper. And it was a part of my entrance, right? And my professor, after I was accepted and I went, and it's day one, And so, of course, professors looking intently in all of our eyes, right? It's like, this is a 4-year program, and half of you are not even going to finish it. It's just the way it works. And it's the truth. I was like, no, whatever I start, I'm going to finish, brother. Okay? All right. And he said, I want you to think about this. You're going to spend the next 4 years studying, and you're going to write this dissertation, and it is going to be literally your life's work. Okay? And so whatever it is that you're going to write about, which was the focus paper, is this something that you are passionate about? Is it something that keeps you up at night? And when he said that, I was like, keeps me up at night. I'm like, well, I mean, I am kind of passionate about it, but this is not something that keeps me up at night. And so that night I'm tossing and turning. And he's like, because the next day you show up, that's what you're going to be writing about. And that night it was almost like an epiphany, a moment of clarity. And I realized, no, this is not something that is going to be a driving force for the rest of my life. It's not something that keeps me up at night. It's something I'm good at. It's something I'd like to explore. It's something I'd like to dig into and maybe find some gold nuggets and share it with the world. But it's not something that keeps me up at night. And so I changed it. And that was the very beginning of this book, Igniting Movements. And you've got all these people that are hurting in the whole world. And there are a lot of people that are passionate about wanting to help them, but they just don't know how. And so I thought to myself, how cool would it be if I could, crack that nut, find that blueprint, and share it with people, normal, everyday people that are trying to change the world for good. They just don't know how. They just don't know where to begin. And that was the very beginning of this long journey of today, Igniting Movements.
Yeah, I love that. And so if you were just give it a nutshell, obviously you got to book them for the speech to get the whole thing. But if you were to tell a leader, go to this leader, say this is how leaders can start to make a movement in their company or nonprofit, what would you tell them?
I would say that there's a blueprint. There really is. There's 4 major components in order to have the ignition. You have the human agent, which leadership and the people fall in. Then you have your driving ideology. This is the driving force of the work that you do. Then you have the organizational construct. These are the internal components of your organization. And then lastly, you have the strategic output. This is the manifestation, the outward expression of your org, of your movement, of your people group. There are 4 major. It's understanding those 4 major components, tenets per se, all right, categories, and they're like pistons. One fires, it ignites the other, and then the other, and then the other. And then once that happens, a flashpoint occurs. So it's understanding that what are the common critical factors that ignite movements. In order to figure that out, in order to find out, got to get the book.
Or the author.
Yeah, that's right. You could book me too. Yeah, Lord.
There you go. What do you find, I know you studied something like 1,000 different movements for this, or like a ton of them. What do you find is the one that is the hardest to happen out of those 4?
I'm going to tell you that you have the human agent, which really leadership falls into. Your driving ideology, what keeps you. The organizational construct, people get well. It's the strategic output. It's the 4th component. And you can't skip. You can't go from, number 1 to number 4. It's a chronological. It's 1, 2, 3, and 4. And what are the common critical factors of that? It's communication, contextualization, and connectivity. So you could come up with the best product in the whole world. You could come up with the best service in the whole world. But if you can't connect with your people group, if you can't share a message and them thoroughly understand what it exactly that you're trying to share, if you can't connect with them, you're going to fail. And we happen to see that all the time. It's amazing the amount of time, money, and energy that people invest in their people groups, in their movements, in their organizations, whether they're formally nonprofits or not. And then they just cannot get that ball past the goal line. And so that's why it's very important. But all these components are very, very important. The common critical factors, and there's about, a handful to a dozen of common critical factors that must exist. And listen, this is not Dr. Damon Friedman saying this. This is like over the 100 movements that I studied. These were germane. This was the genetic makeup of all of these movements. And what I did was I grabbed this rubric, I packaged them all together, I go, here it is, this is it. You want to run a nonprofit? You want to run a movement? You want to run a people group that's really going to make an impact? You got to have these components in it. I didn't say it. It's just that's the way it is. And I unearthed it. Gems, gold, packaged them all together right here in a box, the blueprint right here. It's got to be it's human agent, ideology, organization, and strategic output. It's the way it goes.
What makes a really good, so moving back a little bit to earlier parts, so before the nonprofit, before the business speaking, what do you feel makes a really good special operations leader?
Servant leadership, putting others before yourself, setting the standard, leading from the front. These are very important components. Obviously, we think special operations, we think, intelligence, high IQ, incredible physical fitness. We think outside the box. Yeah, those are all true. But I'm here to tell you the basic fundamentals, servant leadership. I'm telling you, the best leaders I've ever followed. Yeah, they're all smart. They're all physically fit. They all think outside the box. But it's their approach on the way that they connect with their men and women, the way that they lead, never asking anyone to do anything that they are not willing to do themselves. If they're not in the front, leading from the front, they're not good leaders, my friend. And something that I also learned in the Marine Corps, which exists in the best special operations leaders out there, both officers and enlisted. Something I learned very, very early in my career. You got that chow hall, my friend, all right? And maybe you've been out patrolling for a long period of time. But guess what? The officer, the commander, eat last. When you learn that art and letting your troops eat first, you mastered something that most men, most women, most humans will never understand or appreciate and never accomplish. Servant leadership. That's the true secret of the best special operations leaders, both officer and enlisted.
Wow. And where did you learn this from?
Well, I'm going to tell you, and I'm very open about this. I will tell you that early in my career, I made a lot of mistakes. Very egocentric, egomaniacal, had a lot to prove, right? 5 foot nothing, 100 nothing. Wanted to be the best at tip of the spear. And to my shame, I'd do anything to get to the front. Any way to be first. And it came at a cost. When you're dealing with others that are servant leaders, if they care about you, they respect you, if they see goodness in you, you're going to learn the hard way. At least I did anyway. And I had some good leaders really put me in my place. And I had some reconciliation to do with some of my men. And I changed the way that I did business. There's a phrase, my friend. When you go into the military, in special operations, the best of the best, they have this little phrase, and it's pretty universal. Maybe a little word, tweaked a little bit different. Mission first, people always, right? Obviously, without the mission, you don't need the people. You don't have the money. You don't have the resources. You don't transport from point A to point B. But I changed my philosophy, particularly when I became a commander. And I did this. I flipped it around. I flipped it around because I thought that was the right thing to do. I'm dealing with the very best of the best. I don't need to put mission first. I need to put people first. I put my men and my women in my squadron first. And the mission will always be taken care of. Let me just go ahead and unravel this. Let me not unravel, but unpackage this. If I know my men and women, okay, because in special operations you have both, all right? Both, not just the door kickers, but the support system. Everybody's just as important, okay? If I know my men and my women, if I know their families, their kids, right? If I know their challenges, and I love them and I take care of them, I genuinely care for them and they know it. Let me tell you something, Brian. They're going to love me back. They're going to respect me. I don't have to demand it. They're going to give it to me. And they're going to go to the ends of the earth for me because they know I love and care and respect for them. A lot of leaders never get that. They're always smashing people in the face. Do this, do that. Well, I want to earn that credibility. I want to earn that respect. And you know how you do it? By taking care of your men and your women. You got to take care of your teams. And you know what? I learned that in the military, and I'm grateful. The process was painful. I'm hard-headed, okay, like many of us. And so, yeah, I learned it in the military, first in the Marine Corps. but really harnessed that in my 10th year, particularly 15th year when I was a commander. It took a little while.
Yeah, one of the things that I think is also interesting to talk about is unearthing your superpower. So what were your superpowers, and how do you help other people unearth theirs?
So I really believe in transparency, authenticity, being genuine. I'm going to just tell you, I'm going to reach down a little bit. I got a lot of pain in the past, okay? And there were many years that I wish it would just go away. One of the greatest philosophers of all time, somebody that I look up to tremendously, who traveled the world not once, not twice, but 3 different times, sharing this incredible news, trying to bring hope to a lost and broken world. One of the greatest philosophers of all time, his name is Paul. And he himself had gone through so much trauma. He's been beaten, he'd been left for dead, stoned, just whipped, traveling shipwrecked. And there was this pain that he had. A lot of scholars don't have any idea what it is. But he asked for this thorn to be removed. Not once, not twice, but 3 times. And for whatever reason, it never was removed. It was this unbelievable amount of pain used as fuel. And you know what? I gleaned from him. So I have a lot of pain too, Brian. I really do. PTSD, mild traumatic brain injury. I have 5 concussions. There's nothing that stinks more than waking up in a hospital and you didn't even know what happened. And it not once, but several times. Nothing stinks more than walking in, talking to one of the top brain health experts, and they tell you that you have early onset of dementia. You have symptoms of it because your brain's been rattled so many times. When you hear stuff like that, and you're, I'm pretty physically fit. I'm doing well overall. I hope. It just changes your world, and it's like, how's all this? But the reality is I embrace this, and so today, I share my story, and it is a story of pain. It is a story of, it's like, how high does this mountain have to be? How much do I have to climb? Sometimes I'm on my hands and my knees. Sometimes I'm just crawling up this thing in the worst weather in the world. And so for me, I share it. Over 20 veterans take their lives every single day. Over 20. In this podcast that we're talking, halfway through, a warrior's not only contemplated, but perhaps has taken their lives by now. Well, I'll tell you this much. That's a crime. It's a crime that nobody else is there to hear him or her. And so for me, I share my story because a lot of veterans are embarrassed. They're ashamed. So I share my story. I share all the goods, the bads, and the uglies. People look at my academic resume. They look at all my accomplishments. Let me tell you, my friend, it took a tribe for me to accomplish all these things. I didn't do it alone. I had an amazing team, people that believed in me. And so now today, I share it. And here's the deal. I had 1,000 reasons, Brian. 1,000 reasons why I should have quit. I really do. I can list them all. But I realized one day that those same 1,000 reasons, Brian, are the same reasons why I should win. And so I share my story. 5 foot nothing, 100 nothing from nowhere. No family, no lineage, no heritage, no nothing, no money, no nothing. How did I make it? I graduated high school at 19. I was on a 5.5 year, bachelor's degree plan. You know what I mean? 5.5 years. Trust me, I would have graduated sooner if I could have. It just, it took a little trek for me. Life hasn't been easy. But it's this undaunted, like, I will not quit. I have a purpose in life, and I intend to fulfill it. So I use my stories to share and hopefully inspire other people so that when they walk away, they go, I can be more. I can be more, not just for me, but for others. And that's my secret.
What do you tell? I know you talk a lot about resiliency. What do you tell yourself? What do you preach to yourself when things get really difficult?
So I really believe that you have to take a holistic approach. If you want to be fit, I like to use fitness, right? You need to be psychologically fit, physically fit, socially fit, and spiritually fit. You got to be fit to win, right? And so I always tell people, I'm like, all right, so I go down my checklist. In 2023, I spent all of December, no joke, all of December, setting myself up for January 1. Because I wanted to go into 2023 like a rocket, okay? And I am already, right? First gig on the 3rd or 4th right here in Tennessee. And so I set myself up for success. So I'm not ashamed of saying it. You know, I have some therapies that I have to take care of business on, making sure that nothing crawls up behind me and it catches me off guard. So I take care of that psychological component. I do social reintegration. I do adaptive golf. I'm taking care of my ailments. I had multiple procedures in my leg, in my elbows, my shoulders, my knee. You know, it goes on and on. My back. I'm taking care of all these things. You know, just all sorts of stuff. So it's that physical fitness, that psychological and spiritual as well. Every morning I'm waking up. I'm doing a devotional. I'm trying to get connected to my creator, the universe. All right, today's a new day. How are we going to win? How are we going to crush it? How are we going to make this day the best day? And let me tell you, Brian, the reason why I have that attitude is it just changes your life when you think that maybe your life's going to be cut a little short, right? You go to combat. I've stared death many a times in the face, Brian. And there was one time in particular, I didn't think I was coming home. And I got a wife. I got 2 kids. Got 2 puppies, you know? And, I mean, how much does it stink to think that you've been fighting for this freedom, bleeding for this freedom, and then one day you don't even get to enjoy it? So it's just a different perspective, Brian. So I live every day as if this is the last day. I'm living life in light of eternity. And, you know, that's how I approach life. You got to be psychologically fit, physically fit, socially fit, spiritually fit. That's the way that I do business every single day so that I can be the best version of myself and I can make the greatest impact I can while I'm here on this earth.
Yeah, and I'm curious to know, you know, going from LA, Iraq, Afghanistan, what of these experiences have helped you become a better father and husband?
So I'll tell you, if I could just be completely honest, I feel like a lot that I have experienced, I kind of bottled up. I kind of kept to myself, and maybe I wasn't the best dad or husband. And so today I really reflect on those moments and how I've survived. And I think really I'm still trying to figure that piece out. If I could just be honest, you know, how I can use, like what do I do? Do I teach my son the way of the gun? Do I teach him the way of, you know, outmaneuvering people and navigating through the battlefield? I have a 15-year-old son who's extremely talented, and it's the bane of my existence, like some of the other 15-year-old kids out there. And I'm really doing a lot of praying and reflecting on how I can show him some of the skill sets that I've learned. But, you know, when you live in violence for 20 years, I think it just takes a little bit of time to process it all and then feel very comfortable, you know, because with great power comes great responsibility. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and to kind of, you know, finish up the interview here, before we started, you know, off camera and everything, we talked about, I'd ask you, you know, what's the most important thing you want to get out, or what's something you really want to talk about? And that is how to help other people change the world.
That's right.
So if you were to give somebody this piece of advice, I know we're doing this in January here, if you're doing this piece of advice, start out this year, how can people, what are some easy steps people, not easy, but what are the steps people can take to go out and start to change the world for themselves?
So check this out, right? You got like the lovers and the haters of January 1, right? Resolutions like, well, we could start a new habit anytime. Yeah, that's true. You could start the habit on May 1st. Okay, I get that. You can start it any time. But what I love about January 1 is that pretty much most of Americans will start something new. You know, it's like, what are your goals, right? I try to lose weight. You know, I want to read a new book, pick up a new habit, pick up a new job, make more money. I don't know. But I'm going to tell you something. Goals. When we were younger, we used to dream. And every once in a while, as we get older, we'll catch ourselves dreaming again. Well, what happened? Somewhere along the way, somebody stomped on our dreams, told us we couldn't do this or we couldn't do that, or we get a little older, or maybe we get a little injury, or something happens in life. We have another kid like, I can't go to school anymore. I can't pursue, I'm never going to be able to run a marathon because I got this injury, or, I'm never going to be able to accomplish this goal or that goal. Or, since I've been a kid, I've been wanting to do this. I'm going to just put that aside. Why? We allow life to kind of just beat us down. What I really challenge everybody to do is, hey man, go back to your childhood dreams. Go back to those days that you're leaning back on that recliner chair, or you're laying back in your bed and you're looking up at that ceiling and you're like, God, how come I can't? Like, you've got goals and you got dreams, put them down. And as long as you're breathing, as long as you live in this country, you can do it. And for me, look, think about all the resources that you have. Look at all the gifts that you have. Look at all your superpowers. That's what I call, the gifts or superpowers. How can you make the world more awesome? How can you make this world a better place? How can you change the world for good? People go, what are you talking about? Change the world for good? That's so huge. It's so big. The world, look. The way we change the world is one life at a time. That's how you start changing the world. So I always tell people, I challenge you, Brian. I challenge all of the viewers out there. I challenge you. What are your goals? And always remember that when you were made, when you were fashioned, when you were crafted, when you were molded into the man or the woman that you were made to change the world for good. The question is, what is the cause? Go pursue your goals. Garner them. Capture them with vigilance. But then but at the end of the day, how are you making an atomic impact one life at a time? How are you changing the world? Write those down, because like I said, there's kids that are not eating today. There are people that are starving every single day, dying. There are villages all over the world. There's no water at all. There are people that literally walk 5-10 miles with a vase on their head just to get some water from some hole and then walk it back all day. You look in America, you got homelessness. You got shelters where women, battered women. My mom, she was physically abused significantly by my biological father. We lived in 14 different places in the first 12 years of our lives. Why? Running away from them. Like, there's so many problems in America. So when you're pursuing your goals, when you are literally going and you're hunting them down, how are you making the world a better place? Because I want people to be prosperous. I want them to have more money. I want them to have more resources. I want them to have more peace and joy, like the Creator wants us to have. But it's not for us. It's to make the world a better place. There's nothing better than living your life for another. I assure you that, Brian. There's a great reward when you do that. Anyway, that was an answer.
Awesome. Well, David, thank you so much for sharing that with our listeners, viewers here, and doing such a great job, connecting and encouraging and making a huge impact on so many audiences. So we really appreciate it.
Well, I really appreciate the opportunity to share my message of purpose and hope and resiliency all around the country. It's just been such an honor and such an incredible, journey. And I'm really excited about the future as we all continue to grow and make an atomic impact.
Awesome. Thanks, Damon. Well, thank you for those who are watching and listening. Make sure to subscribe, rate, and review. That is a huge help to us, especially any comments you got about Damon. And make sure to check him out as well, Dr. Damon Friedman at premierspeakers.com. So, Damon, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. God bless you and Godspeed.
Thank you for joining us for the Beyond Speaking podcast. To learn more about today's guest, visit premierspeakers.com. Make sure to subscribe and leave a review wherever you listen.